Hi, my name is Tony Hernandez Pumarejo. And who am I? I'm a person that has a story, a purpose that my Creator has given me since the moment I have been here. And I would like to share this story with you, regardless of who you are, where you are, what you're going through, your background, your cultural background, religion, ethnicity, sex. Each of us has a story to tell. And my hope is that through my story, you can take lessons for this story and that can help you in your life. I was born and raised in the island of Puerto Rico. And my story has been impacted by something called autism. I was diagnosed with autism back when I was 3 years old. This was during the early 1990s. And back then, there was not a lot of information about autism as it is today. On the contrary, there was barely any information. And there was a lot of misconceptions. And people look at a disability as a burden, as something very negative. And even we're telling people, back then, to avoid people with disabilities. Using negative and terms such as retardation. For example, when my parents were trying to find out what was happening with me, again, that's a negative connotation. One of my one of the teachers at the Department of Education in the island told my mom that I was a retard, that I was not going to amount to anything. Those were the negative comments that my parents, like many millions of parents all over the world, had to face because their loved one, their child, is different. But that was the way things were back then. So I was diagnosed with autism at age 3. As an autistic person, I have gone through different challenges, but also through different situations that helped me in becoming the person who I am today. Such as, beginning to my life, I was nonverbal to age 4. I have struggles with social communication, building relationships, friendships with others, social and severe anxiety, repetitive behavior, short-term working memory. Those were the challenges. But also, there were abilities, like long-term working memory, very unique interests. For example, I had different hobbies, like the arts. When I was in Puerto Rico, living in that beautiful island, which I call my home, I used to draw different mountains from the island, roads, and that was one of my passions. Also playing video games, and even getting into the world of Star Wars. For me, these were not simply hobbies, but it was more of me getting into my own world because of the difficulties and challenges I was facing in the real world. And because of these challenges and the things that that made me who I am, I faced different types of situations in my life, starting in school. Difficulty making friends, trying to fit in, but being rejected socially. Even being ridiculed and being bullied. Went through different bullying attacks through my school life, up to the point in which when I was in high school, they even did a thing called cyberbullying, which they stole my identity, and they said so many horrible things about me in social media, that I was this, I wanted to kill people, homosexual, and many things that were not me. And because of this, and also the attacks and the rejections, and not to mention the different situations I was going through in my life. For example, I'm the third of 4 children. I went through the divorce of my parents when I was 4. I lived with my mom for the first 10 years of my life. My mom had to move away because of a disease. Then we moved with my dad. And I was struggling to all the changes, it's in the time that I was growing up. I was hitting so many, life was throwing me so many situations, hit one hit after another. And I thought that I was not going to make it. And this led to me being in severe depression and up to the point of suicidal thoughts. But what helped me to survive all of that? One, what helped me was there was this voice that would keep telling me to not give up, that you're worth more than all these situations that you're going through, and that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm a person of faith, and I believe that God was guiding me in this journey. So I kept fighting despite the difficulties, graduating from high school, going to college. When I went to college, I faced different challenges and the same challenges of making difficulties, making friends, keeping friendships. And now I was struggling academically. So I was going through ups and downs, dealing with severe depression, rejection, or nonstop. It got to a point that it's affected my academic performance in college. And it got to this point that I have no choice but to leave college altogether, almost 10, 11 years ago. When I made the decision to leave college, leave Puerto Rico to move to Florida, I didn't have barely any support. I have people, families, even so-called friends telling me that I was not going to make it, that you're going to be a failure, that you are not going to go back to college. I received all of those comments, but I was clear in terms of where I wanted to go. And then because of that, I left college for a time to find more of myself, and I moved here to Florida back in 2012. Moving to Florida, living with my mom and my younger brother, my goal was to start again and find a job that will be a fit for me as an autistic person. And the reason why I mentioned that is because, I was facing all these challenges of living autism, and I wanted to make sure that I was in a position in which will be the best fit for me and less stressful as an autistic person. I remember an article that was written by Dr. Temple Grandin, who is considered one of the most famous autistic people in the world, one of the first to disclose her diagnosis. And I remember that she wrote an article which says about the recommended jobs for autistic people. In this article, she wrote articles for visual thinkers, other lists for more of a vocational or technical skills, but she also wrote she did a list of jobs that were not recommended for an autistic person, and one of them was cashier. Now, why I mention this? Because I was struggling during this time. The economy was tough. I was struggling in finding a position that would be the best fit for me as an autistic person. And it got to a point in that, me and my mom were facing a lot of financial difficulties, and I had no choice but to find anything that came up immediately. So as a result, I was able to get a job. Before getting the job, I interviewed, and I thought I was not going to make the interview because of my eye contact, especially my anxiety. I haven't worked before then, paid position, but my focus was to talk with the employer that was looking to hire and tell them how can I help them succeed with their business. And that was my focus, to talk about my background, my volunteer experience, and how can I help them succeed despite my challenges and struggles. As a result, I was able to get this job I was able to get a job that is not recommended for autistic people according to society, which is customer service and retail. And the reason why I mention that is because customer service requires 100% social communication. It's a very multitasking environment. You deal with different people, different personalities, and you have to be on top of your game to do your job. I was worried, but my focus was, I'm not going to let this stop me, and I'm going to do this job to the best of my ability. I felt like when I started this job, I was back in school. I was like, like being in a playground with the different kids. And the reason for it is because it felt like a playground. You have different people, customers that were very nice, and you have customers that were not really nice. And not only customers, but also co-workers, even supervisors as well. I had to be, one of my challenges that I face is anxiety. When I receive so many things at the same time, I may get like very anxious and I feel like freezing out and barely do anything after that. And a lot of times I felt that as I began in that job. I felt like no matter how hard I work, that I was failing over and over and over again. And that I cannot do this job or I cannot do any job. Those are the negative thoughts that came into my mind. And then I began, again, dealing with clinical depression and be able to feeling worthless in life. I felt like, I was a waste of time. I was a waste in this world. I was blaming everything. My family, friends, the bullies, blaming society, blaming autism, and at the end, blaming myself for my failures up to this point. And because of this, it got to a point, it's like, okay, if I was going to make it in life, is this it? Is this done? I thought that I was not going to make it. And there were points in my life that I was about to end this life. But again, a critical moment came in my life when I decided that I was not going to let the circumstances determine what I can and cannot do in my life. That I was going to fight harder than I've ever fought in my life to get and to reach my goals. And I changed my approach. I get back to work and focus on improving my social skills, improving all the skills necessary to do that job to the best of my ability. And as a result of that, through hard work and sacrifice, through ups and downs, trial and error, I was able to survive that first job in customer service. And up to the point in which I was able to work in this environment for up to 10 years. With my last job being a manager in customer service, running my own store and running my own business. I was a store manager for 4 years, running budget, sales, and running my staff to success despite the difficulties that I face. Imagine that, an autistic person being a manager in a job that according to society, an autistic person cannot do. But that's the reality of my life, of my autistic life story. And as a result, I continued to work hard. A year later, back in 2013, I went back to school, enrolling back to college after being told I was not going to go back to college. And I got into the area of business and information management, a bachelor's degree. And I was feeling this time around that I was taking the courses that were going to help me get to where I wanted to go in life. Studying courses such as accounting, marketing, sales, public speaking, Microsoft Office, among others. I also like about this second time around being in college was the professors. I credited 2 professors in my life. One of them was my accounting professor, which not only helped me with her accounting class, but also helped me to improve my soft skills. For example, I was part of the accounting club, and with her, we and along other students, we went to different business events, networking events. I learned in these events how to shake people's hands, be able to make connections, even practicing 30-second elevator speech, introducing myself, who I am, and how can I help, and giving out business cards, even doing my resume. These skills, again, being put outside of my comfort zone, so that way I can achieve those goals, which helped me in my life. And I credit her for that. I also credit my sales and marketing professor for the things that he did for me as well. So as a result of this second time in college, and after, again, through ups and downs, I was able to lead the team of 5 students to work with the city of Sanford in Florida on a project in which we proposed the creation of a program that will help senior citizens to use Uber within the city limits. And here I had to improve my leadership skills to deal with the differences within the team. And not letting the negative thoughts came into my mind, I set out to find a way to get my team together through each abilities of each team member, so that way we can complete the project. And as a result, we were able to complete the project on time and even did the presentation in front of the City Commission of Sanford back in December 2016, which was one of my highlights and still one of my highlights of my life. 2 days later, after this presentation, I graduated from college with my bachelor's degree in Business and Information Management, a 3.75 GPA magna cum laude honors. And it was a great achievement in my life. But something more important happened on that day. On that night, I was recognized by the college president at that time as an autistic college graduate. I stood up and I was applauded through this recognition. And for me, this recognition was not necessarily for me. This recognition was much more. This recognition was to not only raise awareness, but acceptance that people with autism or autistic people can contribute in our world, can make the difference in our world. A lot of times we focus on what they don't have or they cannot do, instead of focusing more on what that autistic person or any other disabilities can do. And what I was trying to do through my recognition was to raise this awareness, this acceptance that autistic people and their families deserve to achieve a better quality of life. And it's our responsibility as society to give them the tools and resources necessary to help each individual to succeed, whether it's autistic or any other disability or any other condition or difference. More than 70 million, I was just one story, but there's more than 70 million stories out there in our world that are autistic. After my college graduation, facing different challenges starting my business, I again continued to working full-time in retail after college. I published my first ever book called An Autism A Scripted Life, which I thought that I was not even going to get to a point to release my own book, in which I talk about the stories of my life from the moment I came here to adult. And I was able to translate this book into Spanish. And in terms of this journey and continue to grow in life, an opportunity came in my life that I thought that I was not going to receive, which was television. This came after being interviewed for my book on television in Puerto Rico. I was interviewed by a news station in Orlando, and this news station offered me to have my own segment in their morning news program. It was going to be a segment about motivational personal development and talking about autism and other differences or neurodiversity. And before this, I have never been not been inside a television studio. I didn't have nobody in the media business. But this opportunity came, and again, not letting the negative voices tell me that I cannot do it, I went ahead and did it. Standing up in a camera, dealing with the challenges and struggles with anxiety through repetition. And I mention repetition because that's my greatest abilities. If I do different things through repetition, from time to time, then I'm able to do it. And that's what helped me to succeed not only in television, but also my previous jobs as well. I started as a guest bringing different topics. Then COVID hit back in March of 2020, and I had to do my segment from home in Zoom. Then after that, my role in this segment changed when I became a journalist or TV interviewer. And I began to bring people from all over the world that are part of the autistic community. Bringing people and interviewing people from Puerto Rico, Colombia, Spain, in different parts of the United States. I interview autistic advocates, parents, professionals, talking about different topics that impact our autistic community, things with law enforcement, healthcare, housing, employment, services, supports, among others. And this segment not only was for the city of Orlando, but was for the entire world. And because of this segment had an impact around the world. I was able to bring different people, top people around the world, including Dr. Temple Grandin herself, which being the only time an autistic Hispanic I've interviewed Dr. Temple Grandin on television. And I was proud to have been part of that project for 2 years. Today, I have my own podcast. I'm a motivational and public speaker doing talks around the world on autism, mental health, and personal development. But my most important job is to be an advocate for this beautiful community called the autism community, for mental health, and more important, an advocate for people that may have been felt down, that they told that they cannot do anything in life because of who they are. I want to be their voice. And that's what I do through all my works. And that's my mission in life. I set out a mission a long time ago, which is this, which is to make a positive and a long-lasting difference in this world. That is my daily mission. That is what guides me every day through the ups and downs of the work that I had to do to make an impact on people all over the world. And that's what and I'm very grateful to my Creator for giving me that opportunity every day to do that mission. And I want you to know, if you're watching this, you may feel that you're alone, that you feel that you are, you cannot be like everybody else. Whoever you are, always remember that you have a purpose in this world, and do not let anybody or anything tell you otherwise. My story is an example of that, but there are millions of stories that need to be told, autism and beyond. I want to thank you, and I appreciate you watching me for my talk, and I'm very grateful for it. Hopefully this talk has been a great support and help for you. And thank you, and my name is Tony Hernandez Pumarejo, autistic advocate, motivational speaker, consultant, life coach, and international ambassador for autism and the autistic community. Thank you.